Hello, everyone. Welcome from Ted can't see this from the tiny little boxes on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, but I'm Clint,
And I'm Theo.
and this is another one of those. We're calling it a Clint's RPG shelf. Let's say it's going to be a quick look, and as you can tell, because I'm doing the fancy thing that the PDF is behind us, Ted. I'll be scrolling through it as we talk. We're going to be
Okay,
talking
cool.
about looking at the preview thing that we got because we kickstarted the Borderlands and Beyond by Privateer Press, and we finally got the RPG book. And we have been kind of glad Ted's been looking at it more than I have. The most I've looked at
Yeah.
has really kind of been today, but we'll give
Oh,
this a
trust me. Most of my
gander.
most of my bigger looks have been with you right now. The big part
Ah,
was what happened to the elves? Oh my god.
that was yesterday. I read what happened to Io, so I'm doing fancy things. So I'm showing 2 pages at once.
Cool.
So we have you know, the word for it, the index, the table of contents. It's at the freaking top. God.
Yeah.
Um,
So this version of the book is the preview version. So pretty much nothing's finalized. Really,
so
wording
pages
can
could
change.
change as we go. I mean, even though they have the pages in the bottom corners of the book, so I'm only assuming that like, look, this is finalized, but whatever. Um, but yeah, it looks like they have the big chapter 1 section is them going through the history of what happened, history of Rule, Ios, gods of the Borderlands. Then they go into Ios and Rule again, the Glimmerwood, the Bloodstone Marches, Black Ice Mountains, Burning Frost Plains, Howling Waste, the Nihilos Mountains, the Lost Forest of Rylus, of freaking Ios and Elven words, Frostbracken, Daily Life, Factions and Societies of the Borderlands, and then chapter two's character options, all that stuff. We'll get into that. 3 is magic. Chapter 4 is the gear. Chapter 5 are steam jacks and myrmidons. Myrmidons are Iosan steam or Iosan war jacks. They don't run on steam. And then chapter 6 is war beasts, because this is the first book where we start to get into stuff dealing with the warlock, and not the 5th edition warlock, but the Privateer
So that
Press version of a warlock.
So all references to Warlock from now on for this video are going to refer to the Privateer Press version, not the D&D version,
And
because yeah,
And to explain that, if you don't know about this, a warlock is basically someone that can control gigantic war beasts, which are like dire bear-sized monsters that they can like control with their mind, but they're also, skilled magic users. That's what a warlock
yeah.
in the Iron Kingdom setting is. They're basically a warcaster, except instead of robots, they do this. If you know anything about the setting at
Yeah.
all.
They don't have warbots. They don't have robots. They have big monsters.
Yeah. And I
Oh,
don't know if, and sadly they don't have any of the factions that actually deal with war beasts really in this. They don't mention like any of those. Apparently they're going to be in another book. I was a little bummed out
oh,
because this was,
I, I was actually looking at the war beast section real fast. The very first group of war beasts they talk about are Devourer war beasts. So all the circle beasts are right there.
yes,
Because pretty
except
much
for
it's third.
the cool ones, except for warp wolves. They don't have,
Oh
I didn't
yeah.
see, except for all
No.
the really cool, very specific stuff. The ones for the Devourer crap is just the standard
Yeah.
monsters that they use, not the really cool, like, specific ritual crap they use. So I'm just gonna be flicking through pages as we go. So basically, if you want to know the history of the main ones, I can go over Rule really, really quickly. Basically, when the claiming came, they fought with the humans and the Kadorans and the Signarites, and pushed back stuff and went all cool. When they were claimed a bit, but they weren't part of it. But the gigantic monsters from hell are going to do what they do and take as much souls as they can. Uh, so once the claiming was over, and they were like, "Hey, this sucks for everybody else. Like, people's homes were lost and all this stuff and yada yada. We should open our borders and make freeholds." So Rulik cities have way more people in them. They have elves, and they have Ogren, and they have humans, and all this other stuff. So they're far more diverse city based stuff. So that's kind of really, the Rulik's got it kind of the easiest definitely out of this book.
Out of I think everybody when it came to the claiming, which if you watch our other video about Requiem, is when the Infernals pretty much hell shows up and starts going, "Hey, we gave you humans magic, now we're taking your souls, and oh, while we're here, we're just gonna take whatever crosses our path because
Yeah, basically.
middle fingers insert there." So I'll do Eos because I read that first. Told Clint to read that because it was one of those
I did, and I did read
mind.
it. I
Yeah,
did actually read
it
this.
was.
And these section
Yeah,
is it is literally the history, like you see history of rule. It's like from the beginning, and then this is
yeah,
like from the beginning of Ios, which is the elves. And we'll just skip over, just go to the claiming part, like what
yeah,
happened during the
yeah.
claiming,
So the claiming
because there's
happens, and the retribution gets proven right. The Infernals took the Elven God's souls to give the humans magic. So I think, as a friend puts it, when it comes to my favorite jokes about who was right and going to, like, and who's going to heaven, the response is the elves were right,
yeah,
which is kind of funny actually.
this sweet South Park reference.
So they've got two gods left. They're not doing too hot. Eos allies with Scorn. They're mortal enemies because they're dealing with the Infernals at this point. Gorshade, a Eosian Eldritch who joins the Crix and then gets brought back to life right before all this stuff the claiming happens, is like, let's harness Void Archons, finds a way to do that, and then every elf that dies around him becomes an Eldritch, which is pretty much an undead elf.
Yeah,
Starting with one of the named warcasters for the game, Alara. She becomes the first Eldritch under this. The people who are in charge don't like it so much. Gorshade turns. I'm just gonna call him Gorshade because I don't care about his elf
it's
name.
also it's also an easier name to pronounce than his elvish name. But
Girlashard. I don't care. He's Gorshade.
yeah,
Um, he turns against the Scorn, starts attacking them to like drive them back. They get driven back. They all help take out the Infernals, and then one of the coolest new warcasters they brought into Retribution called Falkir the Executioner, who is this giant warden with his big blade, just is told kill him. So she kills him, is mortally wounded. Alara
tells they tell her to kill him a long time ago. Like, look, we don't trust him since he became not part of the evil guys anymore, since the god basically resurrected him the first time. And they're like, you kill him if he does stuff. And she's like, all right, and studies him the entire time
no,
and knows
I
the
love
exact
reading that.
moment. And basically, as soon as Gorshade like steps out of line, which is this moment, she's like, nah, and just kills him.
Yeah,
Like,
kills him,
no,
kills him, smashes his equipment, whole 9 yards. Alara and his Eldritch commanders, because the entire Eldritch like cult that's been hiding is like, oh hey, we're accepted now. What's up, buddies? How you doing? They all come out. They go to the main city. The soulless are with them. They get inside the Thane where the two last elven gods are, and she straight up just kills them.
just walks in and finishes what Gorshade was trying to do a long time ago. And this is not a good thing for the elves when this happens.
Every elf in the borders of Eos either dies, becomes an Eldritch, or becomes soulless. Or with the new Void Touched Cleric thing, which is an Eosian only cleric domain, which I kind of love that. Either like, or is like supremely touched and now draws from the void rather than anything else, because that's where all souls come from. And I'm reading this going,
Yeah, as soon as I read that she killed the last two elven gods, I was like, oh crap.
like, I thought the Eldritch might have taken over. I thought they might have taken the gods hostage. I thought a bunch of things. I didn't think Elara became an Eldritch, killed the gods and turned almost everyone to an Eldritch, so that all the great houses that are left in Eos are ruled by an undead elf.
Oh, and basically all the retribution, all the Iosians that were like out of the range, they felt this happen, but they're out of the range of like getting your three options. They're still technically alive. They come back home and all the cities are closed to them. The territory is shut to them. You can't get in. So they're basically turned away from their own homeland and now kind of live wherever they can to exist their probably short, crappy lives. And I think this was one of the reasons why the Rulik opened their borders was they saw what happened to the Iosans and went like, bruh, that's kind of
Oh,
crappy.
their, actually, their big thing was what happened to the Protectorate and Signar.
Mm.
Because they saw what because Kador has always been their neighbor, and they saw kind of what happened with Kador, but Kador still is like a nation. Signar had so many of its cities blocked down by the infernal cultists and stuff like that. The Protectorate's gone and is now like half went to space and the other half went to Zool, pretty much, with like some remnants kind of like around and everything like that. So they just went, we're just gonna open up, and then because Yosef the Void's never been friends with Rule until they saw some of the remnants, like like when you see a Retribution army, which you probably have never seen before, show up and be like, yeah, we no longer have a home. And the great places that we could go to are held by those who are really upset with us right now. Because when Clinton was mentioning through the table of contents, some of the locations they mentioned, some of those are where some of the great houses that survived this new sundering are from, went to. So House Fire took Frostbracken, and that's where like the one of the greatest military houses is still kind of in one piece. So we still have a retribution of Skyra, but not really anymore because Skyra's dead. And
Yeah.
now all these elves have to deal with the fact that humans did this, but one of our own sealed the deal. And so it's going to be interesting to see. But the fact that it took an RPG to give us this information is a little bit disappointing.
Still very
but also
frustrating.
but also much better than in like the brief thing we would have gotten in like an army book type thing or a little campaign thing. So I am glad that they're finally giving us story and lore in these RPG books, because now I have one burning question that's left in what has happened to my faction? What has happened to the undead? Where
Mm.
is my Crix and what has happened to them? Because holy crap, I want to know about these infernal fights, because the Crix come from the Orgothian side of infernal powers. I'm kind of curious how all this went down. But
Yeah,
back to the book.
yeah, it'll so I'm just flipping through the pages for the Gazetter when it kind of gives short little things of the different cities, like Glimmerwood, which is mostly I think where the troll can kind of have
Yeah,
their kind of thing.
that's where the big combined Trollkin kind of just took up their spot, was the Glimmerwood by the end of everything.
The Bloodstone Marches, the Pillars of Rottenhorn, the Burning Frost Plains, and then it goes kind
Like,
of into the daily life, and we can just kind of skip through this. Let's go into character. Let's get into the good stuff.
let's
Let's
go
get
to
to the
the yeah
meat.
yeah.
Let's go into the character options. So races, they are all different, at least from the previous book, which is
Which
cool.
is actually, yeah, like I love that they're actually following the fifth edition style of doing things rather than what they did beforehand. So in the last edition of Iron Kingdoms RPG, what they did was they did, here's your War Machine side, here's your Horde side, and here's a bunch of reprints from one to the other,
Are those
the
folks back
detail.
here with me?
With this, they went with
Yeah, I thought the books were back with me, but yeah, their
yeah.
specifics edition version. Yeah, they very
Whereas
much
yeah,
split it all apart.
Whereas with this, they're like, so we're introducing some of the Horde stuff into it, but we're not going to repeat the races. So you want to play a Trollkin, they're in the Requiem, they're in the core book. You want to play Yossi and Elf, core book. Nis, core book. Bogrid, Borderlands. Pharaoh, Borderlands. Pigs, which are the tiny trolls,
Yeah, they're
Borderlands.
just pig people.
Solus, which is the darker version of the elves, Borderlands. Which
No,
not
the
dark
Idri
as in
well,
like not dark as in like drow kind of like dark, like in skin tone, but
like
more
they
like
literally
these are
don't have
Eosians born
souls.
with these are Eosians born with no souls, so they're colder, harder, they have like no empathy. They're the chaotic neutral of chaotic neutrals.
Yeah, then there's the Idrian March folk, which are just humans that just happen to live in the Bloodstone Marches.
Yeah.
And then this one has pigs.
Yeah. That's what
or pygmy
you have the
trolls.
pigs. The
Which
March
are just a
folk,
different
I'm actually
version of pig. They're just a different version of Trollkin.
yeah, the March folk I'm excited about because those are desert humans. Like that was cool that they actually put the March folk in the book. I'm like, that's actually a pretty cool that's actually pretty cool. And then the Bogren are swamp trolls, are swamp goblins. The races I'm very confused at not being in here are Gatormen. I was not surprised. I was
Yeah, why
surprised we
aren't the
didn't have
Gatormen in
gators.
this? The Gatormen
But
are a Borderland race.
then I also noticed none of the Gator zones are actually in this book at all. None of them.
Okay. Maybe
None of the
the
swamps are
Gatormen,
mentioned.
the Gatormen, the proper stuff for like the circles proper stuff. Maybe those are all going to be in the more of like the really far section of the outer
Because
lands.
I know when they announced this, they talked about how the next RPG set of books was going to be about the it was going to be about Cricks. They said your favorite, it's like your favorite undead are gonna get a spotlight, and we're gonna be dealing with the super out of the way, more dangerous to humanity and other kind of things groupings. So I was like, okay, so we're gonna get Scorn, Gators, Circle, and Cricks in one book because that actually makes a whole lot of sense. Like the places that you normally would not be having adventuring parties really come from unless you're playing a very specific type of game. So I'm curious to see how that's going to go, but definitely I like this. But so Bogren are pretty much just angrier. They're angrier gobbers, which is their form of goblin. They're just angrier. They're still childs of Dunia, that kind of thing, but they're also so you got two different types: Child of Dunia, Child of the Worm. Child of the Worm is for the Devourer. You're angrier, that kind of thing. So that's actually kind of cool. Your Constitution score goes up. That's terrifying.
Go back to Bogren.
Yep. Then you got Pharaoh, which are pig people. Literally, they're walking, talking pigs. Their war beasts are walking, talking bigger pigs.
Yeah,
And
they're
one
just
of
bigger
their
pigs.
one of the people who works with them is named Dr. Arcadius, and he likes to put mechanical things on those pigs. So you get things like road hogs and stuff like that. So literal pigs with like giant pigs with like wheels. Because that's what we needed in life. They're pretty entertaining. They're very alchemisty style, very much the when we get to the classes, the bone grinder comes from their tradition primarily. And then Idrian Marchfolk, which is these are the humans that live in the Bloodstone Marches. They live in the desert. They were subjugated by the Protectorate. They're pretty much seen as the wild men, but they're pretty badass. Like I've actually kind of like that. They worship Dunia and the Hungry Worm. So interesting way of like getting, say, circle characters into it. And you get pigs, which are pygmy trolls. So instead of like Trollkin being like we're 7 to 8 feet tall, we're cool, and then full blood trolls are like we're 10 feet tall. Pygmy trolls are like we're just tiny.
They're 4 to 5 feet tall.
They're 4 to 5 feet tall. I'm actually super curious now, like actually how big they are, because that's actually kind of entertaining. But yeah,
No, it actually says in their size they're 4 to 5 feet tall.
that's funny. So they're the size of normal humans, but they're tiny, and they usually pop off like bigger trolls. It's kind of great. She got woodland pygmies and Northkin pygmies. So Northkin are the far north trolls. I honestly think the best trollkin in the whole thing. Then you get to the soulless. They're the creepy elves. They have no souls. They're just no one knew about them until all the stuff went down with the Eos, because now the soulless show up. What I find interesting is they're the only race that came with an optional feat called Arcane Void. So if you're a friendly creature within 5 feet is targeted by an arcane spell or divine spell, you can use your reaction to take damage as you shut the arcane energy into your own body. If you are dropped to 0 hit points, the caster takes damage equal to the level of the spell plus the spellcaster's proficiency bonus. So the damage you take is not the damage of the spell, but what the spell level is plus the proficiency bonus.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Then after you finish a short or long rest, you get it back. So I'm like, that's a pretty cool reaction for like, oh, this person's casting fireball? No. No,
Yeah, you just
I'll take the
absorb.
7 damage.
Yeah, just absorb the third level spell. That's actually really cool. Let's go into classes.
Oh yeah, let's get to the cool part. So I actually like what they did here. Classes, subclasses, very beginning, they actually give you a chart
Yep.
of all the stuff. So the 3 brand new classes are the Bone Grinder, which is the specifically you're pretty much a feral alchemist who brings power out of the tissue of dead creatures. If you played 5e and you know the Artificer, I like to call the Bone Grinder the Artificer, but with meaty bits instead of mechanical bits. Because they pretty much do the exact same thing. Minus building of random guns, but they do a lot of the same like weird stuff you can see from that. Shaman, you're pretty much a primal cleric. Pretty
Basically.
cool. Yeah, you are a druid and cleric combined into something a tad bit more terrifying because I was going through the class a little bit there. It's scary. And then warlock. Now we get to the actual their form of warlock. This is the form that forms bonds with war beasts. So this is the primitive version of the warcaster from the first book, which is pretty cool. Then they actually give you a list of all the different subclasses by class. So if you are a Trollkin, you've got 2 for Barbarian, Runeshaper, and Long Rider. Then War Chief is for anybody. I think this is the other way to get a circle character, and that's human. Clerics, we have Judgment and Void, which is pretty cool. So Void Domain, this one I was going to talk about. They you draw a dead or vanished god. So pretty much the Elven gods is where you're drawing from. Fighter, the one I'm super excited about is the Risovas, because those guys are actually pretty cool. They're Nis elves that wear heavy armor, wield really interesting great swords or glaives that are finesse. Which is scary. Gunfighter gives you Ghost Sniper, which is an Eocean sniper. Then you get the Arcanist mechanic, which is pretty cool. And the Rulik mechanic, which is the Rulik version for their Steam Jack, for the same thing for their Steam Jacks. Monks get Way of the Gun, which is you're a monk who wields a gun and channels your ki into more destructive things to use with firearms.
That's actually pretty cool.
It was a cool preview. I was like, that's actually pretty nice. Way of the Battle Mage, you're a martial artist who knows how to use arcane equipment, which is pretty awesome. And then Way of Less Healing, which is a very interesting cleric monk combination. Paladin, 2 more oaths. One's actually kind of cool. I like the Oath of the Custodian, a sworn defender for holy sites and people from harm. That's pretty cool. Oath of Edicts, it sounds very interesting. Ranger, we have the Nis Hunter. Same thing. You're Nis, but you're hunting down the enemies of the Nis, especially anything by Everblight. Rogue, you get the Bushwhacker. Just you're a highway robber.
Yeah.
Pharaoh and Trollkin are like the only races in the actual miniature game that have Bushwhacker type models. It's kind of great. You also get the Mage Slayer, which I actually like. It's the EOCN I murder human mages because you did this. Sorcerer Iceforged is interesting. I like that. That's going to be interesting to see how that one works. And then Warcaster, you get the 4 that are actually very interesting. We have Arcane Assassin, which is the retribution style of leaders. Arcanica Adeptus, so you're an Eocean Warcaster. Rulik Warcaster, you are a Dwarf Warcaster. And then Void Touch is what I was also talking about. These are the ones that survived the obliteration and didn't die, become Eldritch, or become soulless. You just became something utterly different. So now you channel the Void for all your stuff, and you're able to use some of these new Eocean crafts coming out. And then Wizard has Magister and Tactical Arcanist, which is pretty cool. I like that Magister is you are someone who works for the government and you get to just be mean. So those are the new group stuff you get in here. Well, a lot of actual good stuff in here.
No, it's a lot of really neat things. I like the archetypes that they give for the different stuff. They do actually do pretty well at that.
Yeah, so because this is the preview, there's a lot of things that they don't say prerequisite is this. because they had to go back in like I think like a month before the final edit and be like, oh yeah, we have to add all this in because people are rightfully pointing out you need to put a prerequisite in a bunch of this stuff if you're keeping it to these groups that
Yeah.
you never said.
According to this book, anyone can be a Rulik warcaster.
Yeah, which is same with all the EOC and stuff. It's like, no. Like I get it, but this book was specifically for these guys. Now, bone grinders, shamans, and warlocks can be any race. That's something that they've already established. That can be any race. Um, so humans primarily do the Devourer Worm. We can't do Dunia. Dunia is for trolls, pharaoh, groups like that. So, which I like because they actually set that up that both shaman and warlock have devourers and Dunians as like this separate thing, so that humans can actually take part in these new classes. And then bone grinder is just your bone grinder who you're learning how to use the parts of things to do your spells because it's creepy as hell and I love it. Which class do you actually want to kind of like go into a little bit more, like any of them, or move on?
No, there's still a lot to go over. I think this was just touching on them right now.
Yeah. So
Because there's
let's
still
go to
backgrounds.
backgrounds.
So let me
Yeah. This is where once again they're going to have to they're going to actually have to put in the hey,
whoops,
we kind of screwed this up again.
Oh, the backgrounds.
Yeah, like they didn't put prerequisites again, so it's kind of like weird once more.
So the backgrounds are barber surgeon, which is
I love. I love that.
Barber surgeons lack the bedside manner in their clothing and stained with blood and viscera. So there's the desert guide.
You are Sweeney Todd.
So then there is the desert guide, which is basically you're a guide through the desert. It's pretty self-explanatory. Fenblade, which is like a cell sword, but specifically from the fens.
So a Fenblade is a trollkin who wields a giant greatsword and cares not what two craps about anything in front of it because they're a greatest, they're bravado, and the fact that they start with a keg of ale is kind of one of the best things about that entire thing.
Gutter snipe. Some of these are like really self-explanatory. Like it is a gutter snipe. It's just a cruddy little thief.
Yeah.
Northkin fire eaters, which are Northkin trollkin. They're all about ice and stuff, but these guys breathe fire.
Yeah. So yeah, they drink ale, they breathe fire. Their models are actually pretty cool because that's one of their attacks. So it's pretty awesome.
Seaforged traders.
The sea forging Rulux. Like these are the ones that are like, we're on the ocean, we're doing our thing, and they're the and well, they're not even that. They're also I was like, I heard Seaforge and read Seaforge. There's an R in there. They're the blacksmiths of
Forge.
Rule.
Oh, I read Seaforge too.
Seaforge. These are the blacksmiths and the armor smiths, weaponsmiths of Rule. They're the ones that go out. So if you're in one of the Signar main cities and you see a Rulic weapon or something like that, it comes from the Seaforge commission, which is pretty cool actually.
Stormfall archer. Archers that are skilled for hunting the powerful bows used by Iosan Stormfall archers launch arrows high into the air. So they basically just make it rain. Urban nomad. We got a bunch still to go through, so I'm blazing through these now. Urban nomad, which again, some of these are like and then Wasteland Commando. But then here's a fun thing. I want to talk about the adventuring companies because they're actually a little bit more interesting than just the backgrounds.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Badlands Raiders. A traveling caravan of traders has much to fear for their journeys as they plow the course from settlement to settlement. Out in the wilderness, roving bands of raiders prey on the weak and foolhardy and the naive. That's what these guys are. Tier 1, they're cattle rustlers. Tier 2, they're highway bandits. Tier 3, they're feared raiders. And then Tier 4, lords of the Badlands. And if you haven't watched the previous video, these are basically the groups of people that you would make with your players. These are the types of adventures they're going to go on. So your whole group becomes this. There are no prerequisites to make a Badlands Raiders.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
pretty
must
much
include at
what are you?
least
You're
one character
highwayman.
who's proficient in survival. That's what you need. Um,
It's
from
actually pretty
going
cool.
up. Caravans of the Iron Roads. Uh, anyone can be a
The opposite,
caravanners of the Iron Roads.
the opposite of the highway robbers. You're the ones the highway robbers are trying to steal from.
Yeah, draft animals must be cared for in heavy cargo. Basically, it's just it doesn't really give you any prerequisites other than anyone can be part of it.
Yeah.
Ostlers tier 1, seasoned traders tier 2, merchants of the Iron Roads tier 3, Grand Caravan tier 4, which is I think you are also traders as well, but you know have to protect from all those other things.
So
Glimmerwood Creel, which are only one of you has to be Trollkin for this. Um, but the company is a tribe that lives deep in the Glimmerwood, so you're just a part of a tribe that of Trollkin that live in the Glimmerwood, but only one of you needs to actually be Trollkin.
oh, they actually mentioned that in the paragraph right above prerequisites. It used to be a Colgat oath was rarely performed with outsiders, but since the claiming, attitudes have changed as lands are reclaimed, returning a seeming peace to the lands. Like that's actually pretty cool there.
Hmm.
So pretty much, yeah, you're someone who was working with you was part of a Trollkin Creel, so you're part of a clan. Mhm.
Occult bushwhackers.
That's the one we were like, this must be read a little bit more. This is interesting.
Yeah, living in the fringes of civilization means subsistence drawn from the land. For many of these cultures and peoples living within the forests, deserts, and badlands of Western Imran, the lands that have forage and hunt upon have been the home to their kin for many centuries. These are just like literally people that live out in the woods. They're occultists. They're that basically draw stuff from the land. They're bone rippers and all that other stuff, or bone grinders. Any character can belong to a cult bushwhacker company, but it must include at least one bone grinder. Rangers and barbarians and characters capable of spellcasting or alchemy can become full members of the collective as long as they have skills that can be turned to hunting, magic, and wilderness survival. So they start as poachers, then skilled hunters, big game hunters, and then monster slayers.
Which is pretty
Next is
cool.
a retribution remnant, which is easily just a group of Iosans. You all have to be Iosan, and it's just what's a group of you that is left from the retribution of Skyra, and that's it.
I
You're just
actually
a
like I actually like this one a lot because it gives, especially with like what they did to EOS. It's a great way for like people who are like, I kind of want to play this kind of a story, and especially with the adventure that's going to be coming out with this, where you're going back to EOS to see what's going on. That's actually kind of like
it'd be
this would be
interesting
this
because some of
this would
their
be a really cool game to play.
some of their company accomplishments are like recovering an Iosan Myrmidon.
Recovering a cortex, fighting some sign of the Elven God's return, defeating a major raiding party that's attacking a camp of refugees, negotiating a favorable mercenary contract, which I like
Oh,
that.
I'm
That's
going the wrong
actually
way.
pretty
There we
interesting.
go. The Brand of Odom, which is a rule thing, because the rules have a massive long history of doing magic even before the Iosans and well before the humans. This is their grouping of their kind of like specialized magical group that we finally get like information on. This was the one I was kind of like interested in.
Oh yeah.
Members of the Brand of Odom Company are citizens of Rule, and at least one member should be a Rulic Arcanist. So they're pretty specific that they have to be citizens of Rule, and so because of the freeholds of Rule, I would argue, at least if I was running it, that any race could be in a Brand of Odom, as long as one of you was actually a Rulic Arcanist. Because they just say citizens, and they say the word citizens, they don't specifically say Rulic.
Yeah, which is actually pretty cool. I do like that.
That's a specific touch. So they become the Branded, Adepts of the Arcane, Mystics at Arms, and then Elders of Odom. And the members of the Odom thing can do anything from, keep going the wrong freaking way when I'm looking at this. They can be scribes, or they can have vast libraries, or you just random arcanists and work in Rule, or they can go out and be like adventurers and stuff.
Oh, if you watched our Requiem video, which you should, because we do the same thing with that book too, kind of like a fast look through, and then we do a couple deeper dives later. The Brand of Odom is the rules version of the Kadoran and the Signorite and the Signar arcane groups or venturing companies that they have there, like
Yeah.
the Wizard School. So this is their way of giving like, oh, you want to do it for this group, here you go, because this book introduces all the stuff for rule for that, which is great because the last time they did this, it was literally one of their magazines. It was an article that was like this thick.
Yeah. And then giving more love to the rule. Here's all their houses and clans. So a massive amount
So
of you can
for
actually, if you wanted to, create a grouping that was specifically part of a clan. Um
so clans are rule, houses are Eosin.
so clan missions. Oh, then they do houses of Ios. I didn't see that.
Yeah,
So
which
they
the
go through the houses of Ios.
yeah, which they actually talk about which ones are like which one how they have changed since this whole like big thing happened we described earlier in the video. Which I like because you got these houses are here, these houses were still inside, these houses are now in exile because they've broken completely away from Eos after what's happened. And I was like, that's pretty interesting. Like I am really sad that we don't have a lot of like that. I'm surprised they didn't be like, hey, we're gonna take all the Eosian stuff that happened and put it into one tiny little PDF because we understand that everyone's gonna be wondering what the hell just happened. But
This is magic, and we're just kind of gonna magic's magic. It's D&D. Like
yeah, it's like and
we're
so
gonna go
yeah,
into
we skip
gear.
spells.
Yeah, we're skipping
That's
spells.
gear's the fun one. Gear is interesting. Here we go.
Gear for there's
Like Eosin
Iosin
firearms.
firearms. Yeah, and armor and shields. Mage Hunter armor, scrap armor, House Guard armor, heavy armor, House Elawur art plate, Forge Guard plate, Dawn Guard plate, shield, high shield, tower shield, and buckler cannon.
The buckler cannon's cool. It literally has a pistol built into it. A high shield is if you are if you're say someone with uses a gun or like a rifle, you have a high shield. You can place it, and it's got a section for you to actually brace the gun on. So it gives you a bonus for for shooting and
Yeah,
attacking,
and the buckler cannon has a gun in it.
which is yeah. And then for the heavy armor, so like almost all these armors, but scrap armor. So Mage Hunter, House Guard, Elawir, and Dawn Guard is the Eosian armors. Forge Guard is Rulik, which is interesting. And then weapons, pretty much just a bunch of random different things you would think to
Yeah,
see.
it's a more it's specific. The weapons are specific to Rulik and Iosin because this is kind of like their book. Arguably, I'd argue this is their book.
It's also got the Trollkin stuff like the caber. I love that the caber's in here because the caber tosser is the thing you could be as a Trollkin. So I love that that's a weapon. Same with the heavy volge. Pig iron is what the Pharaoh call their rifles. And then the Copus and Half Spear are just that. They're just little things. Hand mortars. Barrage Arquebus Special. Dear God. I think that's the Rulik gun too. Fire Breather's a Rulik gun. The Slugger, the rocket launcher. A lot of fun stuff here.
Yeah, the
Like,
Stormfall
holy
great
crap.
bow that goes with the background. Um, different ammunitions because this is very much a gun heavy game. So different ammos, different arrows.
Oh, never mind. The heavy volage is a Eosian weapon.
Adventuring
Okay.
gear. There isn't a bunch of new adventuring gear because I think most of it is just from the initial book Requiem.
Yeah, it's
Arcanist
pretty
multi
much
tool, glad glade
Glade
light
Light
goggles, gobber bellows, Shile personal field generator, and sporting scope. So
spotting.
only a couple things of adventuring gear, but Steam
Yeah, I think
Jacks.
the Glade Light is the Glade Light goggles is an Eosian thing for the mist of one of the areas, so you can actually see through it easily. And then, yep, now we come to the part the Steam deck. I love that it's like we're introducing War Bees, but we have a chapter on Steam Jacks, so we've got two
Yeah,
groups to go
beforehand,
through.
which is just basically showing off the Rulik Steam Jacks and the Iosin Myrmidons because they are not Steam Jacks.
Oh,
Um, Glancing over really quickly is that Rulik Steam Jacks usually are better than anyone else's Steam Jacks. If you want to min max your character, if you want to be a little bit of a D, make any sort of character that's Rulik and can get your hand on Rulik Warjacks because they are basically better than anyone's Warjacks.
On a fun
And
note,
there's
on a fun note, and everyone's going to notice this, there is a beautiful typo right here on this page.
which page?
When you go page 181, when you go to the Rulik Steam Jacks, and you look at the costs, the two cost tables.
Huh. So
Cost 9,000. Cost with stock Cortex is cheaper.
Less.
Which they should have that switch or put without.
Yeah.
Like, because here's the beautiful thing: when you get to the Eosian ones, they actually have that right.
Oh, that's funny.
I was like, you got something wrong here. But yeah, they're expensive, but they're also really, really good.
But most Warjacks are expensive, and these ones, as you can see on the little the tiny little jack that's in there, it's actually on the smaller side. That's the little the Grunback runner chassis.
Yeah,
It's
it is
just
the tiny one.
That's a tiny little one. It probably stands up to like our chest. It's a tiny Warjack, and they're fast, and they usually are just this two-legged thing with a gun on its back, but they're hilarious. And of course they have all their different the Gordson Driller, I think, is their large construct seam jack, which you can add all of these weapons to it and upgrade it because it works the same way as the others. Then the Myrmidons, which are just Diocesan Warjacks, are fairly they're gonna work the same. They work the same as Steam Jacks. Except they have power fields because they have force fields. What are you looking at?
Everyone else can be a Rulik Warcaster. They actually changed that with the opening of the freeholds. It's up right above the chassis and weapon systems, like that very first page. Ever since the founding, as like traditionally only Rulik dwarves and Ogryn were able to marshal Rulik jacks, and only Rulik warcasters were capable of forging bonds with them. Ever since the founding of the Rulik freeholds, however, mechanics of various backgrounds have endeavored to integrate the design principles of Rulik Cortex into their own work. Thanks largely to these efforts, the modern generation of Rulik Cortexes is simpler for other peoples to interface and interact with, although many older Cortexes are still used throughout the nation. So if you got a brand new one, you could be, I think, any grouping as long as you're a Rulik citizen.
Interesting.
I actually like that.
So for any sort of like context with like the previous edition when they had it themselves, all you needed to like interface with a Warjack of any kind was you needed to be able to speak the language that the Cortex was basically written in. Rulik Cortexes were written in Rulik, Signarans were written in Signarian's language, Khadoran were in Khadoran. So as a Khadoran character, I couldn't like run a Signaran Warjack if it had a Signaran Cortex. They literally couldn't communicate with the thing. They spoke. It's like if your dog, any sort of command you gave it was in German. If you just started yelling at it in English, sit, stay, come, it's gonna look at you like, what are you talking about, you know? But I mean, if that's what because arguably, if you just learned Rulik really well, like you could control them. But
they had it set up that it was only by the magic. That's why they specifically set it up that you could not
those books aren't out here either. Oh, they're up the front room. Seems they're back here.
I'm actually kind of surprised they don't have the Cortex information, because I wonder how long they run for, but okay.
Oh yeah, they don't actually have that stuff. Ranged weapons, Steamjack melee stuff. Maybe because they just go with, well, if you look at it, it goes like with cost. Oh yeah, Rulik Arcanum grade equivalent. So they might be missing some stuff. But Myrmidons, for the sake of rules, they work the same way as any other Warjack, but these ones you probably have to be Iosan. There's probably no getting around it.
Yeah, I was like, I'm kind of curious on this one now.
But they work basically the same. They're giving you the two types of chassis and all the different weapons you can give to them and their run times of what their
Yeah,
cortex are and stuff, because they basically they just have to kind of recharge. um
which is pretty cool.
yeah.
They need arcane condensers, not steam.
Yeah. Then war beasts, they do actually go over this. I was actually curious of this. Da, da, da. I have to flip over to things. So this is the
So
war beast side, but I'm actually curious of what they deal with in certain things. So I'm trying to find as I flip through pages, as I'm looking at a second
so
screen over
so
here.
war beasts take their turns in the same initiative as the controlling warlock. A warlock can take their turn before, after, and between their war beast turns, and their war beasts can take their turns in any order. Because you could have multiple war beasts, of course, kind of like how you could have multiple warjacks. And warjacks have the same rules, by the way. So I like that they kept that simple. Warlocks and warcasters have the exact same thing with warjacks and war beasts. Same initiative, same time. You just choose when you're going to do stuff. War beasts always have proficiency in any equipment specifically designed for war beasts and never have proficiency in any other type of equipment. Only war beasts with hands can use weapons and shields. That's cool. Armor replaces the AC. War beast wearing a shield always makes one less attack. Okay. The attack removed for wearing a shield is always an attack that does the highest average damage among the war beast's attack. That's interesting. So they actually put forcing in here for war beast. That's very interesting, actually. And they have the fury rules of if it goes crazy, God help us all.
Yeah, they have backlash
I
and
I love that.
yeah, the animi, and because usually in the miniature game you can cast a spell. Your each war beast has its own like spell itself that the warlock can cast. Basically, it adds it to their spell list. Finally realize what it was talking about. I'm like, oh, the Devourer war beast is when it goes through the different war beasts for the Devourer, you can't really see our cameras covering it, but the Argus, the Burrowmog, Duskwolf, Gorax, it's just in the monster section of the first book, so you'd actually have to look at it for its
Yeah.
stats and stuff. But what I
Which
was
is
looking
also
at
interesting.
what I was looking at um was in the old edition. None of us played when we played the old Iron Kingdoms role playing game. None of us ever played anything. I never played in a game that dealt with war beasts. But like as you see on the page showing here, care and feeding. They were very specific in the old edition of like how much pounds of food you had to feed your war beast, and usually it was like raw actual meat because most of these things
That was
are
a lot.
predators. You have to let them, so they give you a very simplistic thing of you need to let it go hunt, just every day let it go hunt for a few hours, and come back and feed. Or if you're in a more of an urbanish area, you need to be able to produce food for it. So like an Argus is just like a really massive dog, but then
Yeah,
there's things
with two
like
heads.
with two heads. But then there's things like, the bigger pharaoh hogs, which are like 11-foot tall monsters. So you have to feed them hundreds of
Now,
pounds of food.
now the super cool thing actually is the shaping of animi. Don't just come with a spell. You get to actually create the animus of your war beast. It's a downtime activity. I'm like, that's
Hmm. Interesting.
actually kind of
Okay.
cool.
So you'd have to actually sit down and with your GM and actually figure that kind of stuff out.
Yeah, it takes 5 days and costs 100 gold pounds. Or gold
Yeah.
pieces, not gold pounds.
Yeah, and it goes
It's like,
Dunian
like
Pharaoh
that's
War
actually,
Beasts.
and then it's an intelligence, arcana check, or charisma intimidation check based on what kind of warlock you are. Like, Pharaoh warlocks are more like beat you into submission to make it work. Trollkin and Trollkin are more like be friends, and Circle are more like a mixture because you never know. I I like that. That's kind of cool. Yeah, if the check succeeds, you got it. If not, and then chapter 3 has the list of animus spells from each resonance. That's
Hmm.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it was
Oh damn! Broken Spirit for
I was looking at the
backlash.
Iron Kingdoms thing to see if I could. So hold on here. Let's go.
I can't wait till we
Game
get our
Master's
physical
Guide.
copies. Think
Where is
it's
it? Military, Steam Jacks, Creatures and Statistics. This is what I want.
oh, here
Trying
we
to.
go. Cool. They actually sit there and for each war beast give you the two spells you can use. So like an Argus can have Dark Vision or Long Strider. A Burrowmaw can have Bane. Oh, that's messed up. That's mean, but that's actually kind of cool. Ornery, Dusk Wolves get Elusive. Gorax get Primal. God damn it. Widowbear get Bare Hands. I like that. There is a lot of pig farm on the Pharaoh ones. Oh
Was the
my god!
monsters not in the Requiem book? Were they?
Oh, they were their own book.
They were their own book.
Yeah, the Monster Nomicon.
Oh, that's right.
And then Trollblood Warbees, I think, are my favorites because you literally have Common Troll, Pyre, Slag, Swamp, Winter, Immatroll, and Young. Like, I love that they have, like, here's baby trolls, and then you choose which one it's going to be later on, like what it's getting to. Oh,
What
that's
was some of
cool.
the? Oh, here we can go. It's
So
Argus
you
is
got,
one of them, right?
yeah.
So yeah, it Argus. Just to go simplistic with it, because I have Oh man, did the
Oh my god, that's
I think
amazing.
I think the video like froze for a hot second because I minimized. But the Argus, yeah, you're just gonna go into just the Monster Nomicon and pull up Argus, which is like armor class 14, hit points 22, speed 40, and it's got all of its abilities and stuff. So
So they actually have the frenzy stuff in each of the different residences. So a Trollblood Warbeast frenzy is it tries to overpower the most impressive opponent it can seed. If it succeeds, it takes a moment to enjoy a meal from the fallen opponent's flesh. So it's pretty much a creature with the highest strength. If there's no creature, it moves toward the creature with the highest strength it can see. It doesn't attempt to avoid opportunity attacks. Until its frenzy ends, the war beast focuses effort on a single creature. If it reduces the creature to 0 hit points, the war beast becomes incapacitated as it sits down and begins to feast on the body of the fallen creature. Okay, I
making
have to
it,
see what the
yeah, making it.
same thing. Yep, same thing there. They go after the eating thing, but the Pharaoh Beast frenzy immediately turns to go after the Bonded Warlock and just straight up murder it. So if it's not within reach, it moves toward its Bonded Warlock. And the Warbeast focuses on the Bonded Warlock. If the Warbeast reduces the Warlock to 0 hit points, it becomes incapacitated as it squeals victoriously over the body of its tormentor. That's actually cool.
That's
And
funny.
then what's the Devourer one? This one I'm curious.
Devour. It attempts to attack any creature within reach. It can see if there are no creatures within reach. It moves towards the closest creature. Until the frenzy ends, the war beast tries to damage as many other creatures as possible. It attempts to attack a new creature on each of its turns if possible.
Okay, I actually like how each one is very different. That is actually
Yeah,
pretty cool. Like, so you've got Devourers like everything must die. Um, and it just tries to damage. It just each turn attacks someone new. That's all that it does. I kind of like that. Pharaoh goes after who's tormenting it, and Trollblood just goes, "I'm the biggest. I'm the best."
yeah.
That's gonna be
Then
interesting to see with that more. And after that,
after
we have
that, it's just the
NPCs.
NPCs, pygmy trolls, long mounts, and then the character sheet, which is
Oh,
incredibly similar to the previous character sheet. Though.
oh.
Oh, and actually has the Steam Jack sheet too, which is nice. But weirdly, it doesn't have it doesn't have a Warbeast sheet. You'd think, or is that a nope? That's a Steam Jack name. You'd think there'd be a Warbeast sheet. That's a little stupid, but
So under the NPC section, I want to make a note for the Ocean part. You have the Soulless, went from being automatically killed to now an important, indeed indispensable place because they're the only ones within the nation's boundaries who were not either killed or transformed into undead eldritch. They become the de facto ranked in file of a depopulated Ios. They're now the soldiers, so the escorts, the house guard, and the house guard gunners are now soulless. So like that's actually pretty that's different. And then the Dawn Guard are those that left. They're gone. They're the ones that went to the Abyssal Fortress.
Yeah.
And then Fragments of Retribution, the Mage Hunters. Oh, there we go. And they actually talk about how to do Eldritch Dawn Guard for those that are still within became Eldritch and everything. And we got the Creel, Pygmies, Rule Folk. Ah, the Ogre and Bokor is an actual NPC. Long Riders. Oh, the different mounts actually have their own thing. That's actually kind of cool. So if you choose Long Rider for Barbarian, you get to choose like a Bison, a Mountain Goat, or an Ulk. The Mountain Goat's a large mountain goat, not a tiny mountain goat. And then yeah, then they got the character sheets, your Steam Jack sheets, and then yeah, that's the preview thing for that. So we're probably going to see a lot of changes happen between now and release, which is probably going to be at some point next year.
Hoping that there's also they'll add a War Beast sheet to this, because if they give you the option, you know, which would be very similar to this sheet here. It'd be very similar to this one.
I admit I am very excited to see what we're going to see for which virtual tabletop thing they're going to actually do support with. I'm kind of hoping Roll20 because that'd be cool. Because I would love to like run this kind of game. That'd be kind of fun, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that. So the two things we're missing from the Kickstarter still, which I'll quickly pull up so I can actually say what they are, because I honestly do not remember what the whole thing was. Campaign. So we've got Borderlands and Beyond, the Survival Guide.
Oh yeah, that was the...
That's going to have optional rules for diseases, fear, madness, hostile environments, countless ways to surprise groups, including never before seen monsters. So this is where we're going to get some of the newer monsters. And then Shadow of the Seeker is where we find out about, like, this is where we find out about the Eosians as an adventure kind of thing. So I don't know what level it's going to be. And they made that $10. They added the Cephalix as another one, which I'm curious about. I might actually buy that because it gives you the Cephalix. But that's pretty much all the stuff for this book. Like, it's the only thing we actually got was this one preview book to go through.
This is all we've really seen.
And for us, it was more of like what they do to the elves, because when they did the Oblivion stuff to talk about the Hengehold and the claiming, they did it all through Twitter. It was really short stories. We didn't really get much of like what the hell's going on for a lot of different groups, and then they just stopped talking about certain factions after a certain point. So for Eos, it was right after Gorshade turned against the Scorn. Like after the Eosians turned against the Scorn, we heard nothing else about what was going on with them. That was it. That was the last Eosian thing we got from them.
Yeah, we didn't really hear much about anyone, but we've talked about that in what our think is the just fumbling of that thing. But for now, this is going to be our initial just deep, long-winded look at this. But for now, we're gonna be we're done talking. Thanks for watching this video. The last one did actually pretty well by our standards. So hope you enjoyed me flicking through the pages and us reading some of the stuff. But watch our other videos. Like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, go check out our other social medias and all that stuff, and we will see you in the next video.
Catch you guys all later.